shit, dude. So I just came up with a swaggy ass way of ensuring your business development or strategic marketing campaign get that is advertising based on Facebook has a high chance of getting approved. Let's preface this with the fact that all of this isn't happening. That is, what we've recently experienced has the lagging of bullshit, right? Without any guidance as to how to go about it better, because there was a recent council, legal in nature, that essentially called for quora that would essentially propose a set of policies that would allow people, that would not only help people understand just how phenomenal Facebook is at maintaining the confidentiality, availability, and integrity triad, right, of infosec at hand, but also specifically how it answered the question pertaining to the potential risk that is introduced when dealing with the trafficking of personal information, right? In this, you have to think about how basically the internet was born, right? Me, you, and Dupree just got together. And we're like, okay, to share data, we'll just use A, B, and C because it's really easy to refer to one another that way. Just think of binary. And on top of that, going forward, it allows for the introduction of, you can think about it as signature-driven security protocols to be easily put in place, right? If I can always identify me, you, and Dupree in a way that always allows us to see how we are distinct entities from one another, I can essentially always check for identity theft, for lack of better words, or to kind of put it really simply, right? Now, the challenge is the content, because in today's day and age, media is what I call multimedia, right? What that means is, as opposed to the past where media was simply referred to as media, where a video was only ever possibly a video. There was only one or two codecs that it means, one or two ways of encoding the binary stream that made up the data group that we come to formally experience as the video, right? As far as audio, it was also the same thing. There were only one or two primary codecs that did the same thing for the audio stream, that essentially collected the bits of waveforms that, when you sum together, created the length of a audio clip, right? And on top of that, going forward, to simplify all of this, you just have to think about variance in architecture, right? Before, you had maybe literally two types or two options as far as operating systems. You could go with Windows XP, or you could go with Linux, or if you want to be more precise, Ubuntu, right? And then that was essentially the channel by which people understood, oh, okay, there is actually such a thing as a different type of operating system, a different type of startup sequence when it comes to booting up my machine. Holy shit, how fucking cool. That means, going further, I can actually create my own custom code and preload it in the fucking boot ROM manager itself, without having to worry about creating individual interpreters or translators that do the job of what G++, C-Lang do for me. That means, holy shit, I can literally write my own drivers. I don't even have to worry about making sure that it compiles. I can literally just write the 1 0 0s 1 1 0s Like if I'm looking at an assembly stream, it will work, right? That was actually the magic behind XP, and like the fact that leaving the kernel exposed to the end user, specifically by the lax controls of DOS, right? And how that brought people closer to the digital sphere at hand than ever before. And how the abstraction levels that we're dealing with today has essentially not just nuked that from the realm of possibilities, but more importantly, added a whole challenging set of complexities. Translated. Now, going forward, I just covered video, audio, right? Text was the same train. And what's even worse is with text, you want to think of it like this. A database has a row pertaining to your data. So you'll have a row and column. You'll have rows and columns. The columns holding maybe your characteristics. Let's say I'm modeling the human body, or let's say I'm modeling a person, right? Or even simpler, a fucking address for the USPS. Holy shit, let's just create a solution real quick, right? Have y'all been experiencing like lack of delivery with your mail? Here's something cool, right? So it asks you for your address, your street address, sometimes the unit. That means like supplemental information. If you are in aggregate real estate, then you have to have a sub, or think of it as like a unique, uniform resource identifier, right? And then on top of that, it asks you for your city name, your state, and then a zip code, right? So these are all like, in that row pertaining to you, it's like bat, right? Asking for all these different things. Now, for text, when you think about the binary for that, there are 1,000,000,001, actually, there are an infinite amount of ways that you can go about interpreting this. And going back, as I just so perfectly put it, like, this is not me right now. This is God talking. I shit you not, because I'm fucking retarded. My English. So what this means is, if at any point, if you fuck up in the math, like, you know, like in the past when you carry an extra one instead of holding it, or you subtract one more than you should, that means that the interpreter is actually going to be off, right? There's going to be error propagating all through the fucking end, not just through the conversion process of, for example, me typing in, let's say, going back to the database principle, there's always a field for, do you have any special instructions, right? Someone on a Windows XP device might be using some old or non-modern or non-optimized for a modern world encoding scheme, right? Typically UTF-32, right? And so because of that, the stream of numbers that they're going to be spitting at the computer, at the interface, is going to have a length, a block length, that might be dramatically bigger than even the interface at hand is configured to want to accept. Meaning, if it's shooting 32-bit encoding, or 32 numbers at a time, and the interface is literally configured, maybe badly configured or not, or suddenly just due to a security nuance, if it's used to or wanting a smaller stream, like 8 numbers at a time, there might be things that occur when in truncating it, trying to see, okay, there's 32, so I'm just going to parse. So I'll just count 888, and then to hold my place, I'll just add like a parsing symbol. In that action, the parsing symbol, there might be an error adding phenomenon to occur just by the interpreter, by the parser itself, right? You see that, just how clearly there's so many ways we can fuck up. And like the telephone games of the old days, come up with a radically different message than what was originally transmitted. Or let me be more precise, a message laden with artifacts, because that was the colloquial word, right, when they first came up, that literally were never even meant to be there, causing the space, the size, the packet length to radically differ than what was theoretically anticipated or even engineered for, right? Now going forward, everyone knows there's like 1,001 ways to represent strings. You can use characters, you can use strings, right? And then there's an extra world of math that you can do to kind of play back and forth. Base 2 to base 8, and then, or base 16 to base 2, and then base 2 to whatever, right? There's a whole litany of that shit, resulting in what would have been an easy 1,000 text form input sequence to become something that is dramatically more complicated. Why am I saying all this? Is every time that you're building an advertising campaign, right? So you're going to have a video, you're going to have audio, and you're going to have text, right? And your machine is going to be in a dynamic environment. And maybe the way that it's going to speak with the web gateway that Facebook is going to be using to connect with you, make a relation form between the both of y'all, and create the transmission, kind of like a telephone, right? Maybe that transmission line may not always have the best quality of service. You could be talking to someone from like China, where they have to go through 1,001 different like codes, jurisdictions, different countries, different zones, different gateways, just to make it to the continent before now dealing with getting to your specific jurisdiction, right? Because of that, what I'm saying is think about simplicity in all things. So here are the codified bullet points that I've, I guess, envisioned to be important. One is cover pixels or cover art pixels for the win, right? Is it 1280 by 720, right? That's one for all graphic arts. Number two, for video, is it no bigger than the highest storage that our most performant floppy disk afforded us? That's kind of how I would go about sentencing my text structure. You do those three things, and I guarantee you have like at least 70 or 80% chance of being approved. The next thing to go to look at now is what I would call my database bros and bro sets meanderings, right? So basically, if you're talking about cars, is your targeting feature aligned to that industry, right? You don't want to be essentially talking about cars, but you're aligning to like porn, for example, because even though maybe there is logical intersection between the sample set of the differing, if you want to use ideas or categories, what we are looking to do when we're presenting these metadata, if you want to call it details, to Facebook business, is to just help them catalog your shit, right? You can think of it as like there is an Akashic records of all of the advertising executions that have ever taken place since the conception of that product, and they are cataloged somewhere in perfect harmony with the data that they are dealing with, right? And that has nothing to do with your particular execution, your particular advertising campaign at all. It's literally so God, you, Facebook, anyone can at any time, if they have access to that Akashic records, with a few keyword search, surgically and laser precisely get to your and permutation specific particular advertising campaign. Nothing more, nothing less. If you keep that approach in mind, what I just said, everything becomes fluid now. And I hope it even gives you a greater zeal and level of clarity in the way you go about making design decisions as far as picking the tags, interest details, demographics for the targeting subsection. Hope this helped. Hope I didn't lose y'all. Hope y'all got something out of it. And as always, swag the fuck out. Oh shit, bruh. Talk about Back to the Future, and these niggas already, they were talking about The Veil. But, I mean, technically, Zingdad, The Ascension Papers, isn't exactly a book that was written today. Oh. Also, does anyone see the Emerald Towers of Thought? Or is that just me? Question for 1,000 points. It's kind of funny that I'm having to say this or even think about it, actually, or verbalize it, but I feel like it may help to have it be said. So here it goes. Oftentimes when we build mobile or web applications, we are so focused on the UI, UX, the interaction, the interface, how pretty it looks, how simple it is to click on a button and maybe see a JavaScript driven animation, right? Or even how well it flows from one view to the next without thinking about what I believe to be the essential, i.e. the shell version of the app or what we're building. So what does that mean? Me personally, when I develop, I think of anything that I'm doing in terms of the shell and make it friendly to the user interaction, i.e. Mac introducing a mouse and things that you can click on as opposed to leaving you with the terminal. The terminal is the shell code. It is actually the most important part of your app. It is the thing that without it, you literally have nothing. If you pull the shell code out, basically you just have a nice looking fucking box. And I think going forward with augmented reality, VR, and development done at a rapid type iteration or iterative process, we need to start thinking about things in these ways because as we know so well, as abstraction and encapsulation grows, error as well. Meaning, the lighter and simpler you can make the padding that surrounds your shell code, the lighter you can make the padding that surrounds your shell code be, that is, there's less padding between it and the shell code. There are less views, or the views don't take up so much space. And they essentially, if you think about it from a, I don't want to use the word profit share, but if you have the totality number of the project and you split it in terms of the shell code space and the UI, UX space, you give more space to the shell code to grow, you are better off because then we can do things. We can actually Red Bull give you wings type shit. So now let's talk about an example of this. I will use an app that I've been working on for forever, which is a simple karma accounting app. The features are, my premise for it is that all too often we don't actually have a deep level considerations of the ramifications of the decisions we make in micro moments. Something as yelling at someone when you could have just kept that unstable energy to yourself, or thinking about how a person is a dickhead because they didn't give you what you want when you could have just rerouted that thought, a la the happiness challenge, where you try to maintain a happy train of thought for 30 days, or even doing something as simple as opening the door, or being that guy that upon seeing, for example, that there's someone a ways that is coming and that is going to be entering the building through the door that you are, being the guy that literally just waits, then expresses, hey, it's no big deal that I'm doing this. Take your time. Do not rush. Oh, and I am just here to do that, right? Placing yourself in that lower or humble place to where they literally feel so comfortable as if a king or a queen, right? In doing that, you start to slowly rewire yourself to what I believe to be the golden mindset. Buddhahood, Buddha mind, Christ consciousness, however you want to put it. And so the app would have essentially 3 buttons that allow you to actually be accountable to every single time you win or you fail. Right? Though complex, you could cut it. If you actually look at it, the primary functions, if we were to build this building a class, would be a simple numbers counter, right? Get karma, increase karma, right? And so I will be attributing weight to like a thought action, a word action, or even a speech action, right? Attributing weights to each time attributing weights to each, accountable event, and then decrementing or incrementing when necessary. That, my friend, is the shell code. That is the essence of what I'm building. Now, whether or not I choose to use Qt to essentially make it look, to make it to where the buttons look nice, to make the views, that is, users, what the screen that the user first sees, right? I mean, it's like asking their name, right? Asking how their day is going, or another view where get current karma count, right? Or the primal view, which would be accountable, right? Account for event, right? Making sure that that's done well, meaning it has its constructors, it has XML code that links everything together, it has a well detailed manifest, etc., or even Swift or Xcode, that ensures that the project directory, project path are healthy and sanitized. It does not really matter, because all of these things are just what Robina Corton would call embellishments. The shell code is what matters. In this, approaching this method or this lens of development dramatically simplifies, even optimize, I hope, all of the endeavors that you currently have going on to rolling out a digital asset. Because especially with the hustle and bustle of everything that's going on, with the myriad of technological variants coming up, a new React lib, a new JavaScript flavor, a new spaghetti language, the bare bones laser clarity to know what you're doing, effectively do it, and then more specifically choose the scalpel, the hammer, the laser, or the screwdriver necessary to achieve what is required to ensure that that is done in timely manner, in a manner that is not harming what is currently there, but more specifically, kind of like infusing empathy into the soul digital that is what you're doing, is also in some way encompassed to be aware of the space that it takes and how that works in tandem with the long-term vision of the company and the culture and everything that is the game-changing variable between making it fly and having to deal with maintenance, meanderings, and if you want to call it woes, over and over and over again. Hope this helps. swag the fuck out.
Gets out of the military, and then all of a sudden gets a job in the civilian sector and doesn't last. Because as soon as he tries that, people are going, wait a second, well, you think you're going to be here for the next 10 years? I'm not putting up with this.
Ooh. Fucking Sean's gonna be proud of me for this one. Filmography swag. How well do you know the difference? And if you don't, and then once you get that squared away, make sure you get your 3 digital must-haves for financial swag: Webull, Robinhood, and a bank brokerage. Why? Okay, Webull for global. You can think of it as actually Robinhood for your BGP. So for my engineers, Border Gateway Protocol is essentially when, let's say you're trying to talk to India AT&T, but you do not know how to get to India AT&T. So what do you have to do? Find liaisons. The purpose of a liaison is to essentially bridge you two worlds not yet connected together. Robinhood is phenomenal at that. Enough said on that. Then Webull for essentially monitoring how fast or how slow things are moving, right? And then third and final, to preserve the value of your asset, you get the bank brokerage account. Why? Because if you're, for example, trade or buying or making a purchase, you want to make sure that you're not giving someone shekels that isn't holding shekels right now, or that isn't holding enough shekels to actually make your trade equate in value, right? Simple as that. If you are trading in gold, you don't want to force someone who doesn't have any gold on hand to trade in gold, right? Always use by the vehicle of the financial institution, that is the bank, a medium of trade that is equal in representation for both parties at hand. Meaning my base 2, number 5, is equal to your base 8, number 5, and however the math that plays out to be. Sense enough? Anyways, that should clarify things, connect a whole bunch of dots. But if it doesn't, check out my videos, waggIncome, Global Development, and the Law of Growth on this. It should really hammer swaggy ass shit home, especially if you really are. I feel like it goes without saying, but just to elaborate slightly nuance on the point I made on the shekels thing. The metric, or you have a good bank where they're explicitly verbose about telling you that if, for example, you really, really, really like shekels, but forcing them or enforcing the trade be done in shekels, you may wind up losing value or on your asset, right? Because maybe the party that you're doing business with does not have enough shekels to cover it. What they'll do is be like, sir, I know that you really, really like shekels, but if we do this, we would actually be losing money because we would be forced to cover his end. He doesn't have enough shekels on hand. So where now you're trying to cover, okay, you have $10, we have $10, but he doesn't. He has $8 or $9 worth of shekels in stock, right? So that last remaining dollars is going to have to be done in another currency or another method of trade, gold, silver, etc., etc. And by having to do that, we would overall wind up cheapening the value of our product. Confirm. Are you sure you want to do this? A really, really good bank. Know what's in your coffers like a traveling nun. A boss. Flawless victory. Moments of inviting stillness. Gotta love it. Very different vibe. Press the start button, view map, and point yourself to a mutually beneficial strategic direction. TLDR, on spawn, press the start button and take a gander at where you think enemies are. If you are right, you will get a kill. If you are wrong, someone dies. Finally, remember that this does not mean that we let creativity go out the window. An army becomes invincible when there is a variety of attack vectors, meaning because I, coming from the back, you, coming from the front, Charlie coming from the west, and Ghost coming from the east, overwhelm the enemy's thinking mind, not only, but also even radically cut down the realm of possibilities of their attack movements. We become unstoppable, aka domination. Swag mantra, alignment. Hope this makes sense. To add to a quick check, I would give, right now, the way things are, a click value of about 0.4, 0.5. And what the fuck do I mean by that? A click, the military click, if you want to call it, spelled K-L-I-K, is essentially what I will define in this context just to quickly save time as if you've been on your meditation-ish, being able to see the unraveling of time, manifested in this particular example by one complete cycle of your soldier movement. What this means is, as you're pressing the right joystick forward, you're able to actually perceive an entire revolution, right? Now, when I say a click value of 0.5, I mean for this particular context that, hey, after noticing half of a revolution in my movement, I died, right? Why is this important or valuable to know is it allows you to adjust your gameplay, right? So a high click value would essentially mean that the enemy is not really being offensive, that I had to move around a lot before I died. And a low click value would mean that the enemy is extremely offensive and I literally stood still and I died very easily. If you pay attention in a lot of the maps, about, I want to say 60, 70%, because there's literally not enough square footage, you really don't have to do much. Like, you could literally be standing still and you just be racking up kills all fucking day. Think about this. It allows you to just have more poise in what you're doing, etc. Taking sit reps, gaining altitude, and essentially peering over the overall combat region, as opposed to being so tunnel focused and always going to one particular area or the other of part of the map because your memory tells you that's where you rack up kills. This, my friends, is the art of Tom Bradying it. Reading the game. Oh, and finally, just to fucking drill it home so that I hope we all remember, we are ghosts. So we are all crouched, right? Crouched moving, meaning you just tap the circle button and you literally move around the map that way. Yeah?
Motherfucking business, yeah, all you hating ass niggas want you sneak dissing, nigga. Sneak dissing. That shit ain't gonna get your own, it's gonna get your own, nigga. If you a hater and you know it, fuck you. Y'all nerd rapping ass bitches. I'd rather listen to your instrumentals, nigga.
He said, do something.
Couple Porsche trucks, couple old schools. I line your ass up, push your tape backwards. Cause I'm a real nigga, and I don't like rappers. And that ain't this, and this ain't that. And bitch, I'm strapped. Run with real niggas that'll cut your throat. And they don't drink Pepsi, they just sell coke. All I do is talk, bro, it's like my brain on drugs. You see me out, nigga, I do my thing in clubs. Listen up, Jesus got a little riddle, stack of $20 bills, 2 bands in the middle. All the gangsters, they gon' ride to this, they gon' grind to this, they gon' shine to this. Hey, this is gangster music, this is gangster music, this is gangster music, this is gangster music. All the hustlers, they gon' ride to this, they gon' grind to this, they gon' shine to this.